I've been wanting to create a version of this, like I could just talk to anybody about it in the simplest way. So how would we do that? If someone is just like, what are you guys talking about? This awareness, consciousness, it makes no sense. I have no idea what you're saying. How would you introduce it to someone like that? So the first thing that is needed is that this one should admit to not giving belief to their thoughts at least for a few moments, because it I don't feel like it ever works when they're trying to listen to you and they're listening to the mind at the same time, you see. So it just becomes convoluted. So first is, you must let go of your conceptual knowledge at least for a few moments in that conversation. Then if you say, like, my feeling is that as we are empty, then the presence of our being become naturally apparent. But if I talk to many people who are not in satsang, then they will say, no, what you saying? Like, what being? It's not apparent. So what is the doorway to communicate with them? Because even those who will say, I don't experience being in this way, I cannot taste being in this way, even they will say, if I ask them, like, we've had these conversations with some who are new in satsang, where I said, do you love your children? Do you love your parents? Even when you are angry with them, you love them. So it is not a feeling of love, but a deeper love, you see, which we know only intuitively. When we are angry with our children, the feeling is anger, no? You see? And I say, but you love your children? Really? I mean, besides the fact that anger is there, how do you know? Because the feeling of love may not be there in that moment. You see? So, but we know intuitively. So that is beautiful. No? That is beautiful because everybody in the world, I feel, has had at least this intuitive insight of unconditional love. Thank you. Has had this intuitive insight of unconditional love. So nobody can really say, I have not known anything through my intuition. With me so far, this is very, very beautiful. And we are reading this book also, which is talking about this. It's called The Cloud of Unknowing. But let me spell this out, because the terminology there, I've noticed, for some of you is a bit confusing. So don't worry, I will explain. Um, so the point is to come to that source of knowledge which is beyond perception and beyond thinking, isn't it? And when this is proposed to most people, they feel like we don't know anything like that. But they do know, and that is unconditional love. It could be for a parent, it could be for a beloved, it could be for a child. They may not love God in that way or Guru in that way, but everybody will say, yes, I do feel an unconditional love for my children or my parents. And even if they may initially say it's a feeling I have, but you point it out to them that many times the feeling is not of love. The feeling is sometimes of irritation and anger. You see, things like this. But still, you know intuitively that you love them. You see? So this intuitive knowledge then becomes a doorway to the greater intuitive insight. You see, because nobody, I feel, is empty of this intuitive knowledge of unconditional love. See? So what we could guide them is to say that go to this love, which is beyond the love of a feeling or a feeling called love, but this love, and find out where that comes from. Where does that come from? And that itself is a beautiful contemplation. See, so love can lead us to presence. See? Love can lead us to that vibrational quality of being, the primordial vibration of being. So that love, and that's why as we were reading this book, I said, oh, he's saying the same thing that I've been saying for a long time, but he's making the connection much more strongly. So he's basically saying, and the author we don't know because it's anonymously written. So, like 2 centuries ago or something like that. So I've been saying that what he's saying, he or she is saying, is the loving, open, and empty, which I love. See? It's just like to let go of your conceptual knowledge, to let go of reliance on perception is open and empty. You see? But that is very confusing to most. So give it an anchor of love, like an unconditional love. And that can be a very potent way to look. So a loving, open, and empty, I feel like is a beautiful revelation that came to me, you see, as a trigger of reading this book. So because there's a very rare one, a very jaded one that you would find who would say, I've never unconditionally loved anyone or anything. You see? So everyone can, I feel like, somewhere find this love which is independent of reason or intellect. Now, where does that love arise from? And if you were to use the same non thinking intuitive insight, same open and empty, to remain in that same open and empty, then I feel like the revelation of this presence is possible for everyone. See? Of course, it would be a million times more potent if somebody already experienced an unconditional love for God or Guru. Because then inherently in that there is devotion, there is trust, there is faith, humility, all that is inherently there. You see, which we may not have inherently in our love for our children or love for a beloved or the love for parents. It may not inherently have so much faith and trust and devotion. You see? But if somebody experienced a love like that, unconditional love for God or Guru, and just remained anchored in that, open and empty, empty in the head, full of love in the heart. See, that is to set a very, very potent table for inviting God to dinner. You see? So we cannot still conclude that it is bound to happen. You see? Although I would love to say it is already that way. You see? But that would be a presumption on my part. So take it to be a blessing if I say that. You see? But a loving, open, and empty, then if by his grace should reveal the primordial presence, the primordial vibration of being itself. So we may call this the presence of being. And because we can say vibration, it is actually tasted, intuitively experienced. And then that shines light on that where this comes from. What is the source of the primordial vibration? Is your being limited or unlimited? So most of us will report as we are empty that it is unlimited, has no boundary, it's boundless. So that boundlessness is obviously never tasted. There's no vibrational taste which is boundless. You see, every taste is bounded in some way. But when we look at what is the arising of that primordial, then that brings us to the being. And it's so beautiful that when looked at it this way, there is absolutely zero distinction between Advaita Vedanta and Christianity. Because this vibration, the primordial vibration that I'm talking about is your Atma. It's also called the Sadguru presence. It is also called the Holy Spirit. It's exactly the same. Exactly the same. The being is unlimited, is the Paramatma. The Paramatma is the Son of God, is the consciousness, exactly the same. And that which is aware even of the unlimited nature of being, and yet by itself is not being or not being, is neither being nor not being, is attributeless. Even the attribute or the quality of being it does not have. You see, is the Nirguna Brahman, is the absolute, is the self, is the Father, is God. And it is exactly the same in many ways in which the Buddhists also talk about it. So what you're realizing is that no matter what tradition, religion, culture you follow, if you truly do it with a full-hearted love for anything to start with, but preferably to come to a full-hearted love for God, then the same revelation happens. The terminology may differ. You see? And the terminology is not real. The terminology is just a communication medium, but the insight is the same. So it's so beautiful that just to be open and empty in the head and anchored in love in the heart can lead to this whole thing being clarified, being whole reality being discovered intuitively. And the beauty is that that love, which is not conditioned, which doesn't want, which is independent of time and space or location, that love is something that most of our brothers and sisters in the world can meet at some level. And that can then become the doorway to the presence of being. And the presence of being can lead to the insight of being itself. And that being itself is, as Maharaj said, the portal to the discovery of awareness when taken in that direction. You see, and it's not necessary that we come to these only in this way, but I would say that usually it happens in this way. You see, some can also just, are you aware now? Boom. Yeah, I'm aware. Being is here. And being, unconditional love or the presence of being is tasted within the presence of my being. There is love, there is peace, there is joy, there is the apparent creation of the world. It can happen that way. But I would say that in history and in satsang, that would be quite rare. But it's possible. Everything is possible. It's so beautiful that I still feel like I'm a beginner. I was just starting on this thing. I can't believe that after 12 years, I'm expressing it like this. Whatever I've been doing 12 years, God knows.